Triple H says, if you mess with us, you got two choices. You get your ass kicked, Stephanie says, or you get your ass fired. It's the final Smackdown.
The final Smackdown. Oh, we gotta pay for that?
No.
Oh.
But this is Tales from the Attitude Era. I am Rob Pasbani here, joined as always by Tommy Blacha. And Tommy, you're feeling like you're in a mood for some Eastern European rock.
Yes. Well, no, Europe. They're from Sweden.
Oh, okay. Western European rock.
Yeah. There is no Eastern European rock, really.
Scorpions. I guess they're German.
Well, Rammstein, they were from East Germany.
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah.
Oh, what was that Russian power metal band?
Oh, we took a good quick segue right out of wrestling into Eastern European power metal.
Aria, that's it.
Oh,
legendary Russian power metal band, Aria. How could we forget?
Yeah, that's it. And, Children of Bodom, Finland.
Oh, yes.
That's not really Eastern Europe, but... Well, that's it.
Well, yeah. If you're an Eastern European metal band, let us know in the comments. Welcome.
Are you an Eastern European metal smart mark?
We're talking about the final Smackdown of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Although technically there's another year in the century.
Don't. I was hoping you wouldn't say that, but you did, damn it.
It's December 30th, 1999. We're in Richmond, Virginia. I got to feel like there's a sense of like, let's get through this. We all want to be back home for New Year's.
Yeah, some of it, but also I do remember this one being like, it was kind of pleasurable. Sometimes SmackDown's pleasurable because it's to edit, you know. Actually, well, there's nothing like Raw because Monday Night Raw is amazing because it's live.
Yes.
So, whatever happens. But when the show's over, it's like no editing, no more headaches, no anything. It's already aired. It's kind of, it's brilliant. So SmackDown sometimes is a little more like loosey-goosey, and especially this one was great because, we knew it was going to be, tons of classic Mick Foley package that were going to handle all the segues. So that was like a big buffer of like, you know what I mean? Like writing it where Raw, you really had to, all the transitions, you had to have everything down where this one was like, you just kind of can book the matches and like, they're going to have a lot of wraparounds with, Mick Foley footage. So it was a little,
wasn't as tight,
a little comfortable. Yeah. A little more comfortable. And, being in Richmond, home of Gwar and the Hebners.
Yeah, it was a fun show. Again, it feels like you're just saving, keeping people interested until the new year, but still having some very fun storylines in the interim. We start with the great recap, and you're really selling how unfair it was that Mankind was fired on Raw. That's the basic theme of the episode here.
Right.
And you did a really great job with it. And then after the recap, you have the intro, the explosions, and immediately we go backstage to Stephanie and Hunter, and they asked Kane and Tori to join them. Triple H asked them to be here. He asks for a favor. He wants Kane to be in a no-holds-barred match with The Rock. He sees the way The Rock looks at Tori, and if anything, it's really Triple H doing Kane the favor, not the other way around, based on how despicable The Rock is with Tori, and Kane being easily impressionable and Tori already being like shivery and traumatized, accepts the match.
Perfect.
Yes. Setting up one of the main events for the evening.
Sounds like you were in the running the production meeting back then. That's kind of how it would go.
Oh, just running through the segment.
Yeah, running through that, and of course The Rock being despicable, and that's how Vince would lay it out, pretty much like that. Okay, segment 2, blah blah blah. Anything from everyone, and then people would chime in,
Nice. What an honor. But it's a good setup, and the first match is Test against Albert and Big Bossman. Now, Test was coming out for a match. He didn't know it was a handicap match until he was in the ring. Steph and Triple H are enjoying backstage. Stephanie says she likes seeing Test get the crap beat out of him. What else is he going to do? Get fired? That seemed to be the theme. That's how they have the power over everybody, is because in WWE world, the worst thing that could possibly happen to you is you lose your job in WWE, and no one wants that, especially during the holiday season.
Well, and they've milked that for decades. It segued right into Trump and The Apprentice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're fired. You know,
it's true. Yeah, McMahon was doing it first. I agree.
And no one delivers it like McMahon. You're fired.
Test holds his own for most of the match until the 2-on-1 is too much for him. Bossman uses his nightstick while the ref is looking the other way. These refs really had to get their time. They're like, we cannot be looking at the action with the way these finishes are being booked. And he clobbers him with the nightstick, setting him up, being dizzy for Albert to hit his signature bicycle kick, giving Albert the established win.
Yes.
And Test does not look like a herb, I will say, because he actually had most of the match.
Yeah, who's going to beat those two on one?
Yeah, right. They kind of had to win. Then we have Moolah and Mae Young interrupting Stephanie and Triple H backstage. They both say that they're good friends of Mick Foley, that they're embarrassed at what happened. And Stephanie says, well, they're an embarrassment. How could they attack a fan at a restaurant? She saw what happened on Raw. Tonight, if you guys want to fight so much, you're in tag team action against the Hollies. And if you,
I still giggle.
and if you don't want that, you could just be fired. And then they both go like, all right, we'll do it. Then we get the first of many Mankind classic interstitials. Mm-hmm. And I thought these were excellent. And it made me realize that part of the reason I was such a huge Mankind fan and a huge Mick Foley fan is WWE would do such a great job of telling the lore of Mick Foley, like with the video footage of him being at the snooker match and jumping off the house, doing that high spot when he was a kid.
Yeah.
So it's like, how could you not root for him? Like, he's the avatar of the everyday fan.
And I always was a big fan of that recapping. And again, it's the pre-internet age. The internet was around, but it didn't, wasn't like, YouTube, I can call up anything that everyone posts and I can, have all this stuff at the ready. It still was like a way to make these shows super dynamic, in an easy way where for us, as far as like booking it or writing it, like, hey, why not bring up all the classic moments and have the studio do a fantastic job of laying it all out and, in all the segues
right.
and the show will be dynamic and fast and people relive the shit and it'll just make our jobs easier. Yeah. It was fucking great. So I loved, and then you'd always just look at it and like, wow, that was great studio. Great job.
They did a great job with everything was sequential throughout the night. And like you said, I'm sure there's a lot of fans. There have to be a lot of fans that only just started tuning in the last year or so and probably don't know the lore of Mankind or just from the commentary and whatnot and seeing how much he puts his heart into every match. So this is a great recap, especially since you're setting up Mankind to be the number one contender for the world title in just a few weeks at the Royal Rumble. This is just backdoor main event push, reigniting him as a serious contender since he's been kind of doing silly upper mid card kind of tag team stuff now. Yeah,
and it's I can't say enough how just great all those moments are, from the massive dive off the stage to the like I said, the youngster stuff. The heartfelt interview, then the incredible Mr. Sacco visiting McMahon in the hospital.
Yeah.
Which is just, I could just watch that all day. McMahon is just so great. Like, Mick, no.
Yeah, Mr. Sacco.
Yeah.
And there's one of my favorite moments, which was the first introduction of Cactus Jack into WWF at the Madison Square Garden Raw. I was at that Raw as a wee 15-year-old lad in the 200s, losing my voice cheering for Mick because I was so excited to see. So yeah, that was really fun throughout the show. Backstage, Al Snow is overjoyed. Literally, that's the word that he uses, that Foley is fired. He says he tried to help Mick, but Mick turned on him, so Mick lost. Al says he wants Mick's spot. Now that Mick's gone, he wants the spot. If Mick were here, Triple H said, he'd probably face Jeff Hardy. So if Al Snow takes out Jeff Hardy, since Matt Hardy's already out, they want to take out Jeff Hardy as well, continuing the storyline of DX's hard on for the Hardys. And if he takes out Jeff, they'll throw in a bonus. And Al is very excited to have Mick's spot. Too Cool come out and they dance with Rikishi. And I love that you give the people the dance here. And actually, Too Cool were on heat, so they had already seen the crowd, and the crowd is still loud for them, even for the second time.
Well, often when you do, I found a repeat thing like that, it's even hotter. You know what I mean? No one's in there. It's especially a blast by, no one's ever in there being like, oh, they're going to do that again. And that goddamn, I can't tell you how huge those pops were for so long. Every time the lights would hit and Rikishi would just have his head down like they're going to start, the places would just explode. And just like, you're just like, again? More? Yeah.
This is great. Kurt Angle came out to face Rikishi. He tells Too Cool to leave ringside. And as Angle is cutting his promo on the 3 eyes, Jerry Lawler says if he had a son, he'd want him to be like Kurt Angle. And Cole joked that his son instead turned out to be a grandmaster. And Lawler goes, what? Steve Blackman comes out and he has to be handcuffed to the ring post. And we get a camera backstage and Stephanie's just like, wait, what? I didn't know about this. And Triple H is smirking. This was his development because he doesn't want Angle to continue his undefeated streak. But alas, somehow Blackman had a key to these cuffs. While the ref is distracted, these poor refs constantly being distracted. Actually, Blackman was smart. He threw the kendo stick halfway across the ring to distract the ref. He initiated a distraction while he freed himself, had nunchucks in his crotch, nunchucked Rikishi. And it looked stiff.
Yeah.
Rikishi's knocked down. Angle gets the win. And Blackman goes back to cuff himself.
I'm sure those were gimmicked nunchucks.
I hope so. It made quite a thump.
Yeah. They would have to be. I'm sure. Yeah, they were.
Just a little rubber.
Imagine. Yeah.
I mean, even still, I'm sure even rubber might hurt the way Blackman's.
I'm going to keep it kayfabe. Oh, that was brutal. Blackman went too far. Too far.
After this, we cut again backstage, and Stephanie has a giant sly smirk on her face. Triple H wonders where Blackman got the key, and she says she has no idea, but I guess Kurt Angle ends the century undefeated. Triple H has a look on his face like he's smelling a fart. Like, how dare he?
Well, and I love that too. Just that I think I remember exactly, but it was like, how can we keep this Blackman thing going? Oh, he's handcuffed, but then he gets the key. Okay. and then it's just like executed, like, wonderfully, and like whatever, keeps going. And I do want to comment on the good Stephanie wearing the tie, kind of like corporate, but not really. Also, kind of looks like a sexy schoolgirl simultaneously. So it all works.
She's really upped her look to be much more sexy than like the girl next door vibe she was going for prior.
Although she did look like she was kind of in prep school. Well, let's get off this. It's terrible.
After the break, Tori is getting a Mountain Dew. And I thought this was so funny. This was such obvious product placement because why would a person who looks like Tori be drinking a regular Mountain Dew, not even a diet? Like, I don't even believe that she would be drinking a diet Mountain Dew with that figure. But a regular Mountain Dew with 40 grams of sugar in that bottle?
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
But that said, it did make me want a Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
We need to get a Mountain Dew Zero Sugar. Stephanie approaches her. She said she wants to say something about The Rock to Tori that she didn't want to say in the presence of Kane and Triple H. But she sees how The Rock looks at Tori. He likes to violate women. Tori gets uncomfortable, and Stephanie continues being super descriptive, like, oh, he likes to just grab them and do what he wants. And she's like, no.
Oh, boy.
Just freaking out Tori. Then we have Jeff Hardy versus Al Snow. And the big spot is that Al tries to do a moonsault holding onto a chair while doing the moonsault. So he's landing with the chair on his belly, which I feel like even if he landed it, that's hurting Al Snow.
Well, a lot of those, what do they call them? High impact moves, high risk maneuvers. What a maneuver! They wipe out both people.
It's true. Al Snow was really trying to.
Well, often to bring that up, I've often wondered, even from a young kid, if someone's dropping an elbow and the person rolls out of the way, and then as they calculated that distance, and then they miss, and then it's like, oh, I'm so fucked up. But it's like. But if you would have landed the elbow on the body that was there, would you have been able to just,
right?
pin
It's
them?
kind of like when you're walking downstairs and you think there's a phantom step and there isn't, and you just overstep. It's the same thing with your elbow. I
see. So it's like, it's that calculation.
Yeah.
I'm calculating hitting someone's chest, but if the chest's not there, like, oh, the extra.
That's correct.
A misstepulation.
Yes.
It's like when you think there's a lot of milk in the thing and there's not, and you pull it up and.
Exactly. And it just goes fly.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for covering that up for me. That's been a multi-decade mystery for me.
That's what we like to settle on the show here. Questions like these.
Yeah. Thanks, pal.
Al was really trying hard here. You could tell he was doing some offense that you don't typically see. Like he did this power bomb face plant. So he got him up in a power bomb, and instead of dropping him down the way you traditionally would, he dropped him over his head into a face plant, which I thought looked kind of cool. He eventually tries to Pillmanize Jeff Hardy's ankle. Wow. Tries to do the old Steve Austin, Brian Pillman spot where he tucks Jeff Hardy's ankle into a chair. He's going to the top rope.
Well, you are a youngster. I say that move's been around long before the Pillman Austin, putting the leg up in the chair and dropping on it. I can't think of what comes to mind, but I think there's been other legs broken like that in the past.
But they own the angle at this point, in my opinion. So the ref is trying to remove the chair that Al Snow placed on Jeff Hardy's ankle. And while he is distracted, Matt Hardy runs down and smacks Al Snow in the back with a chair, which is enough to give Jeff Hardy a moment to run up and do the swanton and get the victory. Jeff gets the much needed victory. Al Snow he's better off losing for his story.
I think so.
Then we have Moolah and Mae Young versus the Hollies. I like how when the Hollies come out, the first look on their face is like, well, guess we got to kick some granny ass.
Yeah.
we didn't book this, but we'll do it. Mae and Moolah come out. They look great. They're out with their boyfriends, Mark Henry and Harvey Whippleman. Mae is really riled up. She loves this angle. She's like running up on the turnbuckle, playing to the fans. The fans love her. Before the match starts, she demands a kiss from Mark. Just so good. And the first spot is Hardcore Holly and the Fabulous Moolah get into a collar and elbow tie-up, which Hardcore Holly easily wins.
Yeah.
And knocks her down. And then I like that the second spot is he's like, all right, I proved myself. I'm going to tag in Crash. And Crash runs in, and immediately Moolah gets him down with a single leg.
Yeah, why not?
Her and Mae Young get a few seconds of action until eventually Crash just steamrolls into Mae Young and kind of like spears her down. And he gives her a hip toss. And Lawler quips, that's a break-a-hip toss.
You knew that was coming.
Yeah, and there's another great spot. Crash gets on the top rope. Moolah starts shaking the ropes, and Crash trips and falls into position in the corner. Mae Young gets up. She does the suck-in motion, and this was the second largest pop after The Rock coming in, I think. Her doing the suck-it got a huge pop, and then she does a Bronco Buster, poor Crash Holly takes basically 2 Mae Young feet to the face for this Bronco Buster, but they eventually figure it out. The visual is so funny.
Well, it's just, yeah. The Bronco Buster was all cluster fucked up and no one cared. It's just like a mess. And also it's like, it's that dynamic I loved of the Hollies because you just knew how it was going to go. Bob can be there, just be like, oh, fucking pissed off at Crash can fucking do comedy, eat pinfalls, and they're still could get heat because they're just like that dynamic is always like, if we had our shit together and you're my fucking stupid little cousin, even though you're highly athletic and unbelievable, resilient fucking, Mighty Mouse wrestler, we could get our shit together. We could be champions, but we have internal strife and, so they could fucking, they could do the gaga, they could do the humor, and they can, be real. So one of my favorites, underrated tag team.
Yeah. And I thought there was a chance that Crash would eat the pinfall here, but it was not to be. I think Hardcore would not allow that. He was like, look, I'm sorry, we're winning.
Right.
Because the match ends with Hardcore giving Mae a lariat and then Crash giving her a power slam for the quick pin. Mm-hmm. And then after the match, Mark Henry comes in to defend Mae Young. And I like that he gets a little bit of an advantage until the two of them, get the better of him. And then leave it to Harvey Whippleman to be the brave man. Like, I have to save my women.
Yeah.
And the crowd loved it until.
Yeah, it's great. And there's nothing like Bob Holly just as Whippleman's pointing his finger on him, just like the look of like the least intimidated man on the planet. And then the atomic drop. Ooh,
yeah, that was great.
My rectum.
Yeah, and then like, I don't think Moolah would like that.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Great segment. But really, that Bronco Buster was phenomenal. That's great family entertainment.
Yeah, I agree.
Backstage, Michael Hayes is outside The Rock's dressing room, and he says The Rock refuses to answer any questions. And just as he says this, Tori shows up to confront The Rock. And The Rock storms out of his room being like, hey, no, I'm not refusing anything. And then when The Rock and Tori make eye contact, Tori freaks out and runs off. The Rock is confused, like, what's her problem?
Yeah.
Who is this Tori character? What happened to Tori in the last week?
The thing that cracked me up about that segment was just that The Rock goes to Michael Hayes. What did you do to her? Fuck, what did I? I don't know why that cracked me up. Just like, oh.
Then we have the match, Kane versus The Rock. Of course, Tori comes out with Kane. It's a no-holds-barred match. They quickly fight up to the stage. It's a very fun kind of main event on UPN kind of match. Rock eventually throws Kane off the stage through a table. That gets a big pop. Later on in the match, Kane regains control and chokeslams Rock through another table. And they show a shot of Tori, who is orgasmic at Kane defending her honor. She's so turned on by this.
Yeah, take it easy, Pasbani.
I'm just recapping the action here.
Yeah.
Back in the ring, The Rock gains control. He tries to bring in a chair, but Tori stops him. And he pulls her into the ring as she is trying to stop him from bringing in the chair. And Kane tries to clothesline The Rock. The Rock ducks, and Kane ends up decking Tori.
Unbelievable.
And The Rock boinks Kane with a chair. A very polite headshot by The Rock. It did not look like it wasn't like Bradshaw swinging at the posse.
Yeah.
He was definitely pulling his swing, so to speak. And The Rock gets the rock bottom and the victory. The crowd is very happy.
Yeah. Well, I think Bradshaw could absorb a receipt from the posse easier than anyone can absorb a receipt from Kane. That's maybe part of it, Yeah. So I would put that out
The Rock
there.
was thinking about that. He's like, at some point, Kane's going to be giving me a chair shot.
Yeah.
Then we have this Mick Foley interview, which was so good. It's Jim Ross interviewing Mick Foley. Were you on hand for this, or how was this shot?
No, this was not. No need.
Right. I mean, I'm sure a lot of this was just Foley himself, right? Like you didn't.
Sure. What was I going to do? Be off camera? Got it. Yeah.
So I like this. So the whole show, you have all of these segments, and then you have this interview with him. He's in just a WWF New York sweatshirt. It's a crew neck and, out of character. He's Mick Foley. He's very somber. He reveals that his ultimate dream was to go out and retire in the main event of WrestleMania and go out the champion. A little foreshadowing, a knowing foreshadowing there, but what's about to happen. And he notes that he's not bitter at The Rock. And he says if he would have won, he would have been the most hated man in the locker room. And if you put the two of them side by side, one of us has his best days behind him and one of us has his best days ahead of him. I thought that was a great line. I thought that was really, really cool. And he continues, he'd like to be remembered for the silly stuff like pulling a guy out of a porn booth, which only happened a few weeks ago. We were just talking about how great that segment was.
His whole career is being wrapped up in this 60 minutes type interview. And
he notes as a wrestler, he wanted to be remembered for his return as Cactus Jack at the Garden, which we had just talked about, and winning the world title a year ago. Interesting, he doesn't mention the Hell in a Cell, because even by this point, he's already sick of how much people lionize that moment.
Yes, could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
He said, I know in modern times, he would say like that's the thing most people approach him about, to the point that when someone approaches him with a memory that's not Hell in the Cell, he appreciates it even more because it's like, oh, wow, okay, you're like an actual fan. You're not just, like it means more to him, I guess, than the Hell in the Cell shout outs.
For those Hell in a Cell smart marks, which we call Hell in a Smell.
So that's the next gimmick match. It's a smell match. He says he calls out Triple H and Stephanie McMahon for playing with people's emotions, playing with their families and their lives. And he says this isn't the last you've heard of Mick, and that he's not going to let his career end like this. Great promo. You don't even know it's leading to a world title match, but you want to see it. You want to see Mick back. You don't want this to be the end of Mick Foley. I don't.
Well,
I don't know about you.
No. And like I said, it's like science fiction. You're always watching it like, well, they're going to come back. What? They're dead? No, something will happen.
Yeah. He can't be dead.
Reinstatement match.
Backstage, X-Pac is with Triple H, and Triple H goes off. He's in a bad mood after this Foley segment, and he says that if X-Pac doesn't take out Big Show, X-Pac is fired too. He's not immune from this. X-Pac can't believe it. He storms out. Then we have Chyna coming out to the ring. And again, Chyna completely separate from the rest of DX here. Not two different universes. Grabs the mic and finally explains her actions. I really like this because I did find myself growing impatient, being like, all right, where the fuck is this going with her just interrupting all the time?
Time is right now. Yep.
Time is right. And she reveals she was just biding her time until her thumb was recovered. Because as we know, Jericho smashed her thumb with a hammer a month or two ago. Right. She says the thumb has recovered and now she wants a rematch.
Actually, it got edited out, but she said, I was just biding my time until young Rob Pasbani became impatient with this angle, but no one knew who you were yet. So we cut that out.
You had to cut it. Okay, yeah. Well, the timing was perfect because I was like, if she runs in on one more match,
yeah,
I'm done. And then Jericho comes out. He says Chyna has a crush on him. He doesn't feel the same way, but if she wants to fight, let's do it. And then we have the match right there. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
can't believe you did this without any hype. I feel like this could have been a 1 week. Well, during this era, there wasn't any of that. There wasn't next week on the show we're facing each other. The hype was just for later on in the show. And that's all you really needed. People are tuning in. You don't need to hype. And
it's funny. A lot of people, smart marks, whoever say, that Chyna was elevated to a point and people really helped her out in all these matches, which is true, obviously, because she was this, unique phenom. But these matches aren't bad. They
had a few rough spots in this match, I thought. There was a little miscommunication.
Yeah, but they're not bad. You know what I mean?
No.
Considering the excitement kind of overrides a little bit of the rough spots and, and this and that. So,
I absolutely think people give her a hard time, especially like Jim Cornette. He's like way too hard on her.
Yeah. And it's that unwritten thing of like, well, people get elevated and they haven't paid their dues, and, that happens and what have you. But there's just something about like the uniqueness of her in this spot.
Yeah. And also there wasn't a performance center at the time. It's not like on her days off, she could go and train and practice this stuff. She was put out there without a net with only like a year or two of training, so what do you expect for that level of training? She's doing great.
Yeah, I think so.
So they have a fun match. It is a little rough, but eventually the ref is knocked down. Jericho grabs a chair, but Chyna recovers. She gets a pedigree on him and what looks like a visual pinfall. Since the ref is knocked down, a new ref runs in, but by the time he comes out, Jericho's recovered, kicks out. All of a sudden, Jericho does a side suplex. Everyone's shoulders are down. The original ref is recovered now. Both refs are pinning. They're each on one side of the action, counting the other opponent's shoulders. 1, 2, 3. One ref thinks Jericho wins. One ref thinks Chyna wins. It's like, no, it's Jericho. It's Chyna. It's Jericho. It's Chyna. There's a commotion. The Jericho and Chyna are fighting. The question is asked, who is the Intercontinental Champion? As we go to break. I guess we'll find out on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do know where this is going. A very controversial angle.
Yeah.
I would say.
I love it just for the fact that like it's weirdly so impactful, but it's just so easy. You know what I mean? Because it'd be like, oh, if you dropped it or you lost it or there's a disqualification or it's held up. Something about this really makes it seem like, oh my God, these two, it has to be resolved. But really it's like,
and also I think just because of how long this has been, like, wait, where is this going? Like, how are they doing this?
Yeah, yeah.
It's been going on for this much. Surely something must come of it.
Yeah. It must be resolved.
Well, I think on Monday we'll get a little more information in the new millennium.
Yeah.
Then we have the Dudleys versus the Acolytes. This barely lasts a few minutes until the Mean Street Posse runs in and they get their quote unquote heat back on the Acolytes. And it's a 5-on-2 mauling.
Yeah.
And the Acolytes have no choice but to sell. And even in selling, I see them like trying to fight back. I saw until it was too late because obviously they're going to try to look as tough as possible.
Yeah. I defy them to not look tough, even selling. Hilarious.
This next segment was pretty good. It's DX. It's the New Age Outlaws, I should say, and X-Pac strategizing. And they're being like, wow, Triple H thinks he could fire us? I think he's taking this McMahon Helmsley era thing too seriously. It's like, oh, are they, do they mean this? Now, here's my question. Are they doing this performatively for the television audience? Or do they truly feel like this until they're about to get out there for the last segment and Triple H is like, I'm pulling your chain. Here's my plan.
I don't know. No one knows. I mean, we can't be inside their head, and even if they're doing it because, ultimately, do they trust him? How, is there honor amongst thieves? It's like, yeah,
they've only just reunited.
Sure. It's like criminals will pull off a heist. Like, well, now I got to worry about this fucker killing me and taking the money, and they didn't have a J.J. Dillon to keep it all together like the Four Horsemen did. You never saw that crack in the Four Horsemen. Oh, they did have to kick Ole Anderson out. So, yeah, it's something to continuously play with.
Stephanie isn't like a J.J. Dillon for them, you would say?
Well, not yet, I wouldn't say. No. You can't trust the McMahon the way you can trust a J.J. Dillon. Decades of stewardship in the professional wrestling business.
Then we have an intergender match. Moving along.
Yeah. Well, I could answer your question like this. Who cares?
Oh, yeah, I know. But that, like, It does. It's inconsistent. It's a little inconsistent with what happens at the end of the show. But we'll talk about it. We have you're trying another intergender match with Luna and Gangrel against Viscera and Jackie. I thought this could have been a fun division, an intergender division.
I agree.
Luna and Jackie went at it. Jackie was pounding on Luna. Luna was kind of overselling a little bit. Since it's intergender, the men can fight the women. So it ended up with Viscera and Luna in the ring. And Viscera power slammed her down, like holding on to her as he dropped her. So it's almost like a splash as well, completely crushing her, getting the easy victory.
They should have called it a splash bomb. Would have been good. Yeah.
Luna then gets carted out. And I think the only reason you do the stretcher job here is just to give BB a little camera time. And the crowd is popping for BB.
Yep. Well, it's not the only reason, but it doesn't hurt.
No.
Put it that way.
Oh, there's more. All right.
Well, we were going on that Gangrel, Luna angle, relationship, peril, same stuff, Tori, Kane, monsters with girlfriends, etc. Although I would have loved to seen an intergender tag team champions. You can see the belts with the symbols, the female and the male. That'd have been good.
Yeah, I'd like that.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried that a little bit in modern times. They have this series on Facebook called the Mixed Match Challenge. Don't you love going and watching television shows on Facebook?
Yeah. Well, if it's on Facebook, it's got to be good.
Yeah. Right? Well, the one thing I didn't like about it is in modern times, they allow the women to strike the men, but the men cannot strike the women. There's some like maneuvers the men can do to women, but they no striking. So it's weird. It's a little weird.
It's a little weird, I have to say.
Let the men hit the women, I say.
I mean, well, it's also like, yeah. Can't say anything. What can I? Yeah. We just watched, fucking Moolah and Mae Young.
Yeah.
Go against.
That's certainly another extreme of it.
Yeah.
Rock is leaving his dressing room. He doesn't want to address Michael Hayes. And it was straight out of a Hollywood movie, Michael Hayes. Don't you take exception to getting Mick Foley fired? And The Rock stops dead in his tracks. He says, excuse me. Now I'll tell you what. This isn't The Rock's fault. The only people you could blame are Triple H and Stephanie. They're going to get theirs. I like this. I like that The Rock refuses to take responsibility, nor should he. Yes, but I do like that the announcer here, Michael Hayes, is putting that on him, though. But he rejects it.
Provocateur.
Finally, we have our main event. It's Big Show versus X-Pac.
X-Pac.
X-Pac. X-Pac. If he was Jewish, he would be X-Pac. Triple H and Stephanie come out to watch, as they wont to do. They're out on the stage. And Big Show is looking like all business today. He's the world champion. This is a non-title match. And Big Show, there's quite a size difference between him and X-Pac, even though we've established X-Pac can wrestle anybody. Mm-hmm. But quickly, Big Show has X-Pac up in a press slam. He has him pressed over his shoulders. He's about to chuck him onto the outside when Triple H grabs the mic and informs Big Show he forgot to mention this isn't a one-on-one match. This is, in fact, a handicap match. X-Pac's partner is the Road Dogg. Road Dogg comes out. They get a little bit of moment of advantage on the Big Show. And then Big Show gets his heat back. He's about to destroy the two of them. Actually, it's a 3-on-1. Billy Gunn is a partner. And now the three of them, it's just three people is too much for Big Show to handle. Even though there is a few minutes, you do give him a minute or two of looking hot. But then eventually the numbers get to him, which is the theme of the show.
Yeah.
The numbers are getting to the faces. And then there's a pile on. And then Triple H says, there's actually one more partner. Me. And then he undresses and runs into the ring. And then it's a gang mugging, as Michael Cole called it. And the four of them beat up Big Show leave him a bloody mess. Pedigree, bing, bang, boom. X-Pac gets the win. He celebrates like he actually beat the Big Show. And then Big Show's all bloody. They end the night holding up Big Show's bloody face as they pose. Huge asshole chants from the crowd. And Triple H says, if you mess with us, you got two choices. You get your ass kicked. And Stephanie says, or you get your ass fired.
And that's, and ending on the theme of you will be fired if you don't, do what the McMahon Helmsley era asks you to do, which is a better thing to end on than just the beating of Big Show. And also, I think this was the point where it's like, can't go to that well anymore. By the way, I forgot to mention, which can be a little cheap, but this is like the last time, I think that that was done like that. I think that was running its course.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it makes sense. Like you just needed something to get out of there.
Yeah.
For this show. But there is a little bit of repetition in the writing, as I've mentioned, with the ganging up. It's an easy trope to fall into.
Yeah.
But I'll forgive you 25
but
years
it's
later.
also one of those things. Sometimes you're like, oh, you do it, and then you do it so much where it's like getting like, at least there's this like, overall, heel corporate fucking entity that's saying, oh, by the way, and people get fucking pissed at it. So, it's like the viewer can be like, what the fuck again?
Yeah.
And then you go one too many where it's like, oh, they're relying on it. It's almost like, are they, going to get their comeuppance? So it's not necessarily bad, but I felt it like, it's like, okay, that's the last time for that. It's kind of funny though. Oh, by the way, it's just so shitty.
Yeah, like I think at this point now, the revenge has to come. Like this is how much more could the faces take?
True.
So we'll see. And it makes sense also because it's the new year. Everyone's done partying. Like, oh, let's check in. What's going on in wrestling? I haven't watched in a few weeks.
And to be fair, we're always conscious of like the fucking Rock threw Kane through a table. So it's not like... It's a little more nuanced than, like I said, the problems that WCW went into where, oh no, WCW baby faces are all herbed out and everyone's cheering for NWO and no one they get painted into a corner being like, well, for the integrity of WCW, like who gives a fuck? It's better than that, but I agree with you.
That is the thing. Ultimately, you are protecting Rock. The Rock never looks like a herb.
Yeah.
Whereas they always made Goldberg look like a herb or whoever they made. Sting always looked weak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're protecting The Rock. And also, especially now, you need The Rock protected more than ever since Austin's gone. So he's like your guy that you gotta make.
No, you're right I felt that about like Sting in that era. We should make some t-shirts. Sting got herbed. That would be good. I'll work those up. I'll put them for sale.
So we're done with
good. I'm sorry. You don't really seem to like that idea.
I'm all about Herb getting more out in the lexicon. So I actually do support it. I don't think Sting would appreciate the shirt.
Well, it's we're on his side. How about this? WCW Herbed Sting. No.
Oh. I could see it. The old WCW logo, herbed in italic, and then the Sting logo.
Yeah. We'll work on it.
Yeah, we're workshopping it. But now that we're through 99, how was your reflection on your first 3 months on the jab?
Oh, it was tremendous. I remember going to New Year's Eve party at the McMahon's. That was and driving out to Connecticut and it was like Y2K, and all that like madness was like, even if, if you were 99.9% sure that nothing was going to melt down and the world was going to end, it still was 0.01% like, let me look at the news. Anything really happened besides my calendar didn't update or whatever the fuck. But so it was interesting. It was fun. It was like, wow, this is really, impactful. Everything was just, jamming along. And so it was a fine end of the century.
Was New Year's the first time you were at the McMahon's residence, or had you already been up there?
No, I've been up there a couple times because sometimes depending on which, if you're going to the West Coast or something, you'd meet up there and go to the White Plains Airport if they're, renting the small private plane or whatever. So, tremendous. I lived in.
It is interesting though that you have time off, and you choose to spend your time off with your work family. You can't get out of the bubble.
Well, yeah, it was like, you get that invite though, New Year's Eve, of course, so. But
so what was the vibe? I'm guessing it was like catered. There was fancy lighting. Was it indoor? I guess it was too cold.
No, it was just it was fine. It was like just it wasn't like extravagant like you'd think. They live in a fine place on a in a gated community down the street from the Yvonne Lendl Tennis Academy in Connecticut.
But they had like people like catering it, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Linda isn't scooping out,
no,
handing out chicken wings.
No. Yeah. I love your take on it. So it's like catered, huh?
Tell me about this catering though. Like,
it's a catered affair.
Do you remember what kind of food? Like, was there lobster? How was the caviar?
Yeah, it was fine. Nothing too memorable, nothing too unmemorable, just the way you'd like it.
So, and it was like basically the agents and like the people backstage. Were there wrestlers coming?
Yeah, all kinds of people. I remember the CFO of the company and other, people and such, and quite not a lot of like wrestlers really.
Yeah, no one really lives
in
north.
Yeah, in there. So it was like, it wasn't as like spectacular or anything as you'd think it was.
Nothing about like Michael Hayes getting too drunk and
but that was one of my favorite things too, was like even first going to like their house, being like, oh, okay, there's Linda, like, would you like some coffee? Sure. Just waiting for Vince to drive to the airport or something. Just those weird little times where just like, oh, this is his big huge dog, this bull mastiff, and just things were kind of oddly normal, although he had like
the giant portraits of himself.
Yeah, exactly that. Like, but just like, hanging out there waiting, just, just like, like anything, just like, oh, waiting for the boss to come down and gonna split. And,
so when you got in there, were you like, oh, this is bigger than I expected? Or like, oh, this is about what I expected? Or oh, it's smaller than I expected?
The house, you mean?
The house. Yeah. What's the wow factor?
It was like, it wasn't too ostentatious. Mm-hmm. It wasn't too Steve ostentatious. It was big. It was in a gated community. It was, kind of like I don't know, bigger than Tony Soprano's house, but kind of about that vibe, okay. In a way.
Okay. That's
nice, good. Nothing,
right.
But, yeah. I don't think, at least in that era, the lifestyle was not anything outside of wrestling, that kind of travel. And you got to remember too, the year that I worked there, or the time I worked there was, it was all hands on deck. It was just like the work ethic. It was work,
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine there was, even any time for him to do anything outside of that really. So, but, it was,
yeah, when you got to the house, there wasn't anything there like, wow, they're really showing off their wealth here. It's just like, okay, It's a nice house, but everything in here is what you would expect.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I was impressed by the lack of, pretentiousness, put it that way, and everything seemed to be in line, everything was fine, nothing out of the ordinary or nothing too grandiose whatsoever.
And did McMahon be like, hey, Tommy, let me show you my gun collection or something like that?
Nothing. Yeah. Nothing like that. I do remember he had a big bull mastiff that Linda allowed him to get this bull mastiff if he promised to stop riding his motorcycle that he had an accident with when he had some big, huge motorcycle that literally had a small block 350 engine, some fucking crazy. And then, so he's like, and he fell off and he hurt his hip or some shit that no one would ever know because he probably walked around in pain, with a big smile on his face. But I do remember that, like, seeing like, oh, this dog, like that was something he brokered with her. Will you let me get that huge dog if I promise to stop riding the motorcycle? Yes. So that was the only quirky thing. But
well, one more question about Vince. Was he a drinker? Like, do you remember what his like drinks of choice were?
Not at all. In fact, I remember him getting kind of loud and a little bit tipsy on a plane once because he had about 3 glasses of red wine. So from my experience, he was not a drinker at all. And if anything, the comment I think I made was like, thank God. I can't imagine him drinking whiskey. Dear Lord.
Yeah, you think he'd be a mean drunk.
Yeah. So there's been some tales of him like, getting, I think he's like just a guy who like rarely got tipsy and like, oh my God, he tied one on once every 3 years or something, a few drinks for some strange reason. But no, not at all.
All right. Well, that's good to know. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And did you have a moment of self-reflection as the clock struck 12 and you're like, I'm writing wrestling. I'm doing a wrestling thing.
Yeah, those would happen all the time, Sometimes there would just be moments where it's like, they would just pop up here and there. So, in fact, one of my favorite things to do, and I think I mentioned it or not, is to, I had a routine where, we would usually on Tuesday, we'd fly back or depending where we were. So Wednesday was a travel day. And then I'd be in New York and kind of start to write stuff and get in contact with Gewurz or whoever. But I would, my routine was Thursday to get up early and go to the library on Fifth Avenue in New York, which is just like, like a palace inside this tremendous room and I would have my laptop and it'd be like, I'm writing wrestling, in this like just palatial, just like what a great routine to like, I get my coffee.
Yes, a pudding match.
Yeah, exactly. And go to and just look at look at the frescoes, look at the ceiling. Oh, this is an amazing, New York, Manhattan, living there. And now segment 2 of the fabulous Moolah comes. It's like I always got a thrill about that. That was one of my favorite things.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got plenty more to go in the new year. 2000 is where things really, really kick into high gear. I think we have the infamous Royal Rumble. We have, the S is hitting the fan in WCW. So there's going to be a lot of ship jumping very soon.
Yeah.
And a lot of cool storylines up ahead. And then also I'm very excited to get to WrestleMania 2000, which in my opinion wasn't one of the better WrestleManias. I'm going to just put this out there. So we'll have to discuss.
We'll discuss. And, the other overriding thing was like, there was a moment of reflection of like, even when I first came on board, SmackDown was very new. And it was in people's heads to be like, Jesus, how many original hours of programming a week can wrestling do? And, I was kind of thinking, there's not a lot of difference between these pay-per-views and the Monday and Tuesday show as far as like, the pyrotechnics. I mean, and the storylines and what was supposed to, the standards of what had to be delivered. Pay-per-view is always a little different, just pace and stuff. So it's kind of like, I was in my mind thinking like, when is it going to be oversaturated? And when are fans going to be like, well, I can watch Monday Night Raw and I can watch SmackDown and I can watch Jacked and I can watch Heat. Why am I going to pay once a month so much money for these pay-per-views? And so I think like, is that going to, are the buy rates going to go down? Fuck no. They just kept fucking going. And sometimes you'd be out there looking at these families and going like, God damn, these people watch 6 hours of wrestling a fucking week. How much money are they spending?
$200 here just to come here. Yeah.
And then the WrestleMania rolls around and that's like more money. And then you think like, well, so everything's just going and building and going. And then we haven't even mentioned the fact that like, oh, by the way, I didn't mention the XFL to you. Like, what?
Oh, yeah.
So, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was just like, wow, you really did feel that kind of like, oh, this madman isn't going to stop till something breaks and goes wrong, which is what he likes anyway. So like, that he's a risk taker, it's like, so, it was kind of like, wow, let's see. but it was still like, it's like being on a plane and like, are we still going up? I mean, the air's thinning out, we're still going up, So so that was the Reflections 99.
So stick around. I know, as always, we'd love your feedback. tftattitudeera@gmail.com. And our social media handle is tftattitudeera. Era. Leave us a thumbs up or some feedback. We'd appreciate it.
And put in your orders for the WCW Herb Sting t-shirts and hoodies.
Oh, yes. Please tell us. Leave a comment with your size.
Yeah, please leave your size.
We'll
Very important things. All right,
folks. We'll see you next time on Tales from the Attitude Era.